Okay, good afternoon. My name is Nelson Eban, and I will be talking about how to avoid visa denial for Ireland. So I'll appreciate it's nice to be here, and I'll be talking a lot about decided things to. I'll be talking a lot about what you need to do to actually avoid visa refusals for Ireland. Okay, maybe I should just wait for other people to join and then I could continue. Thanks for joining. I could see slash JP Faith Ishoma, thanks for joining. Okay, let me just start. So I'll probably be talking about how to avoid visa refusals for Ireland. Now, if you're looking at Ireland, if you want to study in Ireland, there are a lot of things you actually need to consider when you want to go to Ireland to study. One of the things that I would actually advise international students who are interested or those who are looking at studying in Ireland is, first is you have to look at, do you have the document? Because Ireland has to do with documentation. Now, first is you need to look at the course you want to actually study, which is very important. Unlike other countries where you obviously can, for example, you've done engineering and you want to switch into management or business course. Now, you need to also explain to the school, just like you need to write a personal statement. Now, in the personal statement, you need to explain why you've chosen to study business or business related, looking at the fact that your background is in engineering. Now, apart from the fact that you also need to submit an SOP, that's your personal statement to the school, it's also important that you also need to submit the statement of purpose, why you also want to study that particular course for the embassy as well. Now, the embassy is very key or very particular about why you're switching your program. So this is very important. This is one of the factors that can also lead to visa refusals. So most times we advise students to properly sit down, think about the course they want to do, because when it comes to visa application, they need to explain to the visa officer. Now, the visa officer is not. Now, for one of the beautiful things about Ireland is you have to just submit your document, so there's no interview. So unlike other countries where you have to do an interview, the embassy can actually call you to probably find out from you or ask you a couple of questions while you're switching careers. But it's not like that for Ireland. So the moment you submit your document, it's your document that they evaluate, and it depends on the visa officer. So the visa officer sits down to look at the document you have submitted to know if this person, the statement of purpose this applicant has written, if it really justifies why this person is actually switching careers. So it's important that you take note of the course you want to actually study. This is very, very important when you're considering studying in Ireland and when you're considering making an application or a visa application to Ireland. Now, Irish visa is one of the best, or one of the good, in terms of visa, they are very good when it comes to they issue visa a lot. So, but for you not to get a refusal, or for you not to get a refusal, it's important that you take note of this. Now, first is you have to look at the course you want to study. The course you want to study is very, very important. That's one. You also need to look at your work history. Work history is also very important. So when your work history is also very important. And your CV as well is very important. A lot of people make mistakes on their CV. For example, you graduated in 2012. You didn't do anything 2012, 2013. You got a job in 2014. So you need to explain to the embassy what you've been doing between 2012 and 2014. If there are no proper explanations to what you have been doing within the last 2 years, or let's say between 2012 to 2014, it will automatically lead to a refusal. So you need to explain. So if you were at home for 4 months, you need to explain what you were doing. You were at home for 4 months and why you were at home for 4 months. So this is very, very important when it comes to getting a visa for Ireland. Also, you need to also look at the fact that now, if you have been out of school for, let's say you've been out of school for 5 years, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and you've worked in different places. Now, you have to submit either reference letter from those places you have worked, or you have to get your employment letter from those places you have worked. If those reference letter or employment letter is not included in the application, it will lead to a refusal, which is very important. So where you have worked, your reference letter or your employment letter has to be attached to the visa application. So it's also important to take note of the finance. After you have met the documentations are complete, you also need to take note of the finance. Now, for finance, it's a very important thing. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of people get refused for Ireland is the fact that they make a lump sum or they make a large sum of transaction on their account before they make the visa application. Now, the Irish embassy is very particular about lump sum that comes in and out of the account. So if you're making your visa application and, for example, 12 million naira, or let's just say 3 million naira was transferred into the account, and that account has never received 5 million naira before, 3 million naira. Now the embassy wants to be sure that that funds were not transferred into the account because of, or it was transferred to the account because of you're making a visa application. So this is very important. And every transaction in the account has to be properly explained. Has to be properly explained. If not, it will lead to a visa refusal. So most times we advise students to ensure that they do not make a lump sum or do a large sum of transaction on their account before making their visa application. It's very, very important. Now, sponsorship, I was still talking about sponsorship. Sponsorship is also very, very important when it comes to getting an Irish student visa. Now, if you're getting a sponsor could either be your brother, could either be your father, could either be your sister, or could either be your uncle. Now, these are people that you can actually use as sponsor. You can also use other people as sponsor as far as you can actually show relationship between yourself and these people. Now, the embassy wants you to show how are these people related to you. So if your brother or your sister or your uncle, auntie is sponsoring you, you can always claim relationship, maybe from father's side or from your mother's side. If your brother or your sister is the one sponsoring you, all you need to do is get a birth certificate for yourself and a birth certificate for your brother or your sister, showing that it's the same father and mother, both parents are the same parents. Now, on your birth certificate, it will show the father's name. On your your mother's name will also show on the birth certificate. It shows that both of you are actually from the same parent. This way, it also guarantees, or it also gives the visa officer a clear understanding that there is a relationship between yourself and your sponsor. Now, some people will say, oh, I want my uncle to sponsor me, I want my auntie to sponsor me, auntie from the father's side or uncle from the mother's side. Now, so what you can do in this regard is, first is you have to get either a marriage certificate for your uncle and a marriage certificate for your mom, or you get their birth certificates to show that they are both from the same parent. This way, it will actually increase your chances of getting an Irish visa. So in absence of this, it means that the chances of you getting a visa denial is very high. Now, the island does not joke with sponsorship. So if you're getting a sponsor, the sponsor has to be related to you. They do not take friends, they do not take, unless you have, there's a way you can actually claim relationship with your friend. But in most cases, it's difficult to actually claim relationship with a friend. So it's better to have this, or it's better to put this in mind before starting the visa application. It's very, very important. Now, another thing that might also lead to refusal is the fact that, now for Ireland, you also need to submit, or I'll just list the documents you need to submit for visa application so that you understand that, oh, these are the documents needed for visa application, and if these documents are not complete, it means that you can actually get a refusal. Now, the documents to submit for Irish visa application is you have to fill there's a form you have to fill. You have to go to VFS page, VFS Ireland, and you have to complete the visa application form. You have to submit 2 passport photographs. Also, you need to fill the questionnaire form. There's a questionnaire form where you have to tick. You have to put in your father's details. You have to put in your mother's details. You also have to put in your details and your travel history. Now, for travel history, it's important that you declare that you've been refused a visa before. Now, if you have been refused a visa before, this does not reduce your chances of getting an Irish student visa. The idea is they just want to be sure that yes, you're truthful, and you have to be truthful in your application. So if you have been refused an Irish visa application, and if you have been refused a visa to any country before, we advise you declare the refusal. Now, it's important because Irish embassy might go as far as verifying your information, and the moment they find out that you've been refused a visa before and you did not declare it, it means that it's actually a ban. So this will actually lead to a ban. So it's very important that we declare any refusals we have. Apart from the fact that we have to declare the refusals, we also need to submit the refusal letter to be sure that it is not a ban. Now that's one of the things they look at as well too. So if you've been refused before, you have to look for, even if you can't find, you have to try as much as possible to look for the refusal letter, because it has to be attached to the application. Now, like I said, the fact that you've been refused before doesn't reduces your or does not reduce your chances of getting an Irish visa. It just shows that you're being truthful to them, and the fact that you're truthful, your chances of getting the visa is actually high if you have met other requirements. So that's travel history, which is very important. Now, so I also talked about your CV. CV too is also one of the requirements for visa application. So you need to submit your CV, and your CV has to be up to date. That's updated CV, where you have to indicate, you need to be sure of when you finish school. And for some people that do not have or do not have an idea of when, or do not really have a date when they finish school, maybe must have edited their CV based on, because they want to apply for a job in Nigeria. I know it happens that way. You want to apply for a job in Nigeria, you've reduced your age, so the age doesn't tally with, or the figures doesn't tally with what is on the CV. So it's important that you have to look at your CV. Also, your LinkedIn page is also important too. So whatever it is that appears on your CV should appear on your LinkedIn page. They also look at LinkedIn as well when it comes to the visa application. These are what the embassy would take note of when making their decision, or when they need to issue, or when it's time to issue the visa. So your CV has to be up to date. Also, it's important that you also need to pay for the visa fee. The visa fee is about you have to pay appointment. Appointment is about 20-something thousand. It's about 20-something thousand naira. That's what you'll be paying for appointment. But you also need, when you get to VFS, you have to pay for the visa fee, which is about 40-something to 50,000 naira. So you'll be paying in total, which will be about 60-something thousand naira for both appointment and the visa application. Now, also, it's important that you take note of. I just talked about your CV. You need to take note of your CV. You also need to take note of your finances, which is very important, and personal statement. Most times, some of the refusals we have seen is the embassy would say that your course you're going for, the course you have applied for, does not, or you do not seem genuine based on the course you have applied for. Now, the truth is, the university will actually give you whatever course you want to apply for if you show on your CV that you have maybe work experience. But for the embassy, they will have to look at it properly before they can actually issue you the visa. So it's important that you take note of the course you want to apply for. This is very important. Now, I've also talked about, so you also need to write IELTS. For some schools in Ireland, they do not require IELTS. But for the embassy, it's a major requirement that you have to submit IELTS. Very, very important. So now you need to submit for undergraduates. For undergraduates, they look at you need to at least have overall of 5.5. For graduate programs, for some courses, you need to have about 6.5. But 6.0. But we advise you, if you can have about 6.5, it means that yes, that's a pass mark. So for some people that do not want to write, or majority of our students do not want to write IELTS. So there's option of Duolingo. So you can actually write Duolingo, and in 48 hours, the result is out. It's less expensive. I think it's about $55 or thereabouts, or $55 thereabouts. So you can actually take the Duolingo test of English. The embassy also takes that English test, which is also accepted for the Irish visa application. So like I said, so it's important that we take note of all of these documents. These are the documents you need: your admission letter, your bank statement, your reference letter. You have to get a reference letter from where you currently work. For example, if you're still working, if you're still currently in an employment, we advise that you get either an employment letter from where you work, or you get a work reference letter, so that you get a work reference letter to submit for the visa application. So if they also another important thing that we need to also take note of the fact that if you're currently working, you also need to submit. If you're currently working, you also need to submit what we call a pay slip for 6 months. Most times the embassy would ask you for a pay slip to be sure that you currently work. And another thing is, for some people that do not, okay, let me just give a scenario of a student that got refused an Irish visa. Now, the student graduated in 2014, didn't do anything until 2016, and the student went to declared on the CV that they worked somewhere, and then imputed where they work, and then got a letter from that place. Now, unfortunately for the person, the Irish embassy sent an email or went online to verify the places where this person have actually worked, and got to discover that this person didn't work, or the place they claim they work is not actually online, because most times they also go online to verify where you claim you work. So they go online to check the company out to see if they have a physical and online presence. And most times, so if they don't have an online presence, they go as far as doing their verifications. So, and the process takes about 4 to 8 weeks. So most of the applications I have seen are taking like 8 weeks. So they have 8 weeks on their hands to actually work on your application. So if you're submitted a document that is not true, the chances of them verifying that information is very high. So we advise that any applications you're doing for Irish, you have to be sincere and be truthful in the application process. This is very, very important. So I would actually give room for anybody who have questions. You can actually ask me questions, and then I'll answer those questions, and as well as also touch on other areas that are very important when it comes to the Irish visa application, and what would actually help you, or what would actually reduce your chances of getting a refusal for an Irish visa application. Thank you. Okay. So some of the schools we have in Ireland, we work with a couple of universities or colleges in Ireland. We have that's the Griffith College. We have University College Cork. University College Cork has different campuses, and Griffith College has different campuses. They have campus in London. They have campus in Dublin as well. Hello. Hi, can you guys hear me now? Hi, can you guys hear me? Hi, can you hear me, Buki? Okay. Okay, we can hear. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I think I don't know what happened, so I was unable to. Okay, so I was talking about how to avoid denial for Irish student visa application. So if you have questions regarding Ireland and you want to know what the visa requirement is, then you can actually ask me questions. So I was talking about how to avoid denial for an Irish student visa application, which is very, very important when you're considering studying in Ireland. Now, it's important that you take note of this point I had mentioned. I talked about the finance. I also talked about your documentation. The documentation is very, very important. Now, the Irish does not joke with documentations, so it's important that your documentations are properly set before considering Ireland. Now, for those who want to study in Ireland, one of the things you should take note is that the Ireland does not, Irish schools do not take deposits or do not take part payment of fees. So you have to pay your fees in full, which is very important. So if you're considering Ireland, just know that you'll be paying your fees in full as soon as you get an offer from any institution in Ireland. Now, this also increases your chances, of getting the Irish student visa application. Now, before the school will actually issue, the moment you have gotten an offer from an Irish university, it's important that you also pay your fees in full. Now, for some schools, you might be told to pay an initial deposit, but the truth is, most times, your chances of getting visa is usually very slim with an initial deposit. So that's why most times we advise students to pay their fees in full when considering studying in Ireland. Very, very important. This is one of the major things you need to consider when studying in Ireland, because your fees has to be paid in full. Now, for some of these universities, like I said earlier, for some of these universities, they do not require an IELTS. They do not require any of the test of English, but it's a major requirement for the Irish visa. So somebody's asking me a question: what if we don't get the study visa after paying tuition fee in full? Now, if you don't get the visa after paying your fees in full, you get a refund. The difference is you probably might not get it in full, maybe 100 or 200 euros deducted from it because of transfer charges. But you always get your fees in full. You can always request for a refund if you don't get your visa. Now, one of the beautiful things about Ireland is, even if you're refused a visa, if Ireland refuse an applicant a study visa, now they'll probably send you like a refusal letter stating the reasons why you have been refused a visa. So now you can actually reapply. It's called an appeal. So you have 2 months to appeal that decision. So if an applicant is refused based on insufficient documents, now they will list the documents that you have not submitted. So all you need to do is just get those documentation and then DHL it to Abuja office, the Irish embassy in Abuja, and it will be looked into. In most cases, you will always get your visa issued. So it works that way for a lot of people have actually known. A lot of people have actually applied, gotten a refusal, then did an appeal, and then they got the visa. So all they need to do is just submit an additional document showing proof that yes, you have this document and that document. In most cases, the only time you might not be able to, or you might not be allowed to submit an appeal if you've been refused based on insufficient funds. So if you've been refused based on insufficient funds, it means that you cannot do an appeal because you do not have that fund in the account. But anything outside the funds, if you've been refused based on insufficient document, you can still do an appeal and you don't have to pay any dime. You're not paying any amount. All you need to do is just add those documents that they are requesting for and then just DHL it to the Irish embassy in Abuja. And trust me, you will be issued the visa. So somebody's asking if you're self-employed, how do you show evidence for it? Now, if you're self-employed for an Irish visa, all they need to see is you have to submit tax certificates or tax clearance. You have to show that as self-employed, you have a business registration details, you've been paying tax within the last 6 months. You also need to show your company bank statement. You need to show any other payments that you have done that is linked to the business. So you have to show that. Another factor that they also consider is, now, what kind of business do you do? For example, if you do buying and selling, let's say you have a shop where you sell electronics. So you have to show them the invoices and all of that. The invoice you give out, you have to submit those invoices to show that this is what you do on a daily basis. The embassy, is a must that you must submit those invoices to show that this is how you generate your funds. And you have to do a sponsorship letter, obviously. And that's for those who are going to be sponsored or that are going through or who has a sponsor. You have to submit your sponsor's document. So you're being sponsored by an uncle, auntie. That uncle has to declare what they do on a daily basis, what kind of business they are into, and how they make their money. This is very important. If you do not explain this, it could also lead to visa refusal. In most cases, I advise those who are self-employed to have an itinerary, to have like a sheet where they can explain what they do on a daily basis and how they make their money. So it's okay, how much should we budget in naira for the total expenses for an Irish student visa? Now it depends on, now if you're looking at studying in Ireland, it depends on the tuition you're looking at. Now for some schools, their tuition ranges between 12 to 15,000 euros. So if you have paid your fees, you're required to show a minimum of 10,000 euros. If you go on the page, if you go on the Irish website, it says 7,000 euros. But in most cases, we advise students to have at least 10,000 euros in their account as at the time they are making their visa application. Now, we don't advise that you do a lump sum or transaction on that account as at the time you want to make your visa application, because this could also lead to a refusal if you cannot explain those transactions or those transactions happening in your account within that period of time when you want to make the visa application. So it's important that you take note of the 10,000 euros as what you need to have in the account when you are making your visa application. Your fees must have been paid in full, and then you need to show 10,000 euros in your account. So they require a 6-month bank statement, and the closing balance must be at least a minimum of 10,000 euros, which is about, say, 5 million naira thereabout. Someone is asking, okay, I heard you can't go with your spouse. Yes, unfortunately, the Irish student visa does not allow dependent. So if you have a dependent, you can't go with your dependent. You can only go with your dependent when you are settled in Ireland. For example, you're done with your study and you're actually going through the route of the post-study work visa. So then you can actually, if you have gotten a good job and you earn a certain amount of money, then you can actually bring in your family. But with a student visa or a study visa, you cannot go in with your dependent. So now, I also talk about the aspect of, somebody just asked about self-employed and being sponsored. Now for self-employed, there's a lot of documentations you have to show that you can afford to take care of yourself, or you can afford to pay your fees. Even if you have paid your fees in full, the Irish Embassy wants to see that you have a source of income. And this is very key. You have a source of income. There's something that generates money for you. Now you could go as far as, because you need to write an letter of self-explanation, introductory letter explaining that you currently have a business running in Nigeria. The business generates XYZ amount of money annually, and this is what you have shown in your account. You have shown more than enough money to cover up for your entire for your cost of living and for the entire period of your stay in Ireland. And you will not seek for public funds, or you will not become a nuisance to the Irish government when you arrive in Ireland. With somebody asking to me, that's not fair. Let me change my plan straight away. I'm sorry about that, but the Irish visa do not welcome dependent visa. You can actually look at the UK. The UK can actually, with the UK option, you can actually go with your dependent. But if you choose to go to Ireland after your program and you probably get a job, a good job, you can actually bring in your dependent. Okay. Okay, that's not fair. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, somebody asked you a question. Okay. So if you're looking at Ireland is a very good location. The truth about it is one of the safest places to actually go to in terms of study in the world, and it's they have friendly and lovely people in Ireland. The beautiful thing is you can actually work while you're studying, and you have the option of staying back 2 years after your program to work as well. So during this period, okay, sorry that okay. If you have questions, you can actually throw in your questions, and I'll be willing to answer those questions basically, and all of that. So Ireland is not a bad option. It's a good place you can actually go to study. So somebody is asking, please continue with your explanation for explaining self-funded finance for visa. Okay, now like I said, for self-funding, it's important that the embassy wants to know how you intend to fund your studies. Even if you have paid your fees in full. Now, if you're running a business, they expect you to submit your CAC document. You also need to submit where it shows that you are the owner of the business. You also need to prove to them that the business is still in existence. Now, they go as far as checking the business on CAC page. Now, if you go on if you want to check this, you can actually go on the CAC page to actually put your company details to see if your company is showing active or inactive. So if your company shows active, it means that the business is still in existence. If your company is showing inactive, it means that you have not been running that business for a long time. That's what they assume, that you have not been running the business for a long time. So if you have not been paying tax and your business is showing inactive on CAC page, it means that this is a refusal, or the embassy will probably refuse the applicant, and then the applicants will need to go sort out their status on CAC page before coming back to either do the appeal or reapply for the visa application. Now, also, you need to also submit, for example, like I said earlier, if you run a business, you need to tell them what kind of business you run and how much you make from that business. So this is very important. The receipts for the business you have to show. If you're a contractor, you have to show them contracts you have done. You have to show them the contract you have been doing, or you have done, or current contract you are doing before the okay. Is it a good day for my sponsor to put funds into my account as proof? Yes, it depends on who your sponsor is. Your sponsor can actually transfer the money into your account and then write a letter. Then your sponsor also needs to submit their bank statement. You also need to submit your bank statement. The sponsor needs to submit their own bank statement, and a letter attaching that bank statement stating that they are sponsoring you because of the rules or the policy for the Irish visa. They have decided to transfer the funds into your account. So the sponsor will submit their bank statements. They will see from the sponsor's account that the sponsor has transferred your funds for your cost of living in your account or into your account for the purpose of your study. This way, yes, you have actually shown proof that the money belongs to you, and you have access to the funds. Okay, hey, could you please confirm that the Duolingo test is accepted for visa application? Yes, Duolingo test is accepted for visa application. So for some schools do not take any of the English test. We have schools like Degree Fix. We have schools like National College of Ireland. They do not take if you have WAEC, but it's a major requirement for visa application. The embassy accepts Duolingo test of English, and trust me, some people will say it's the easiest to write. So, and the truth is, it comes out faster than either TOEFL or IELTS. Hope I've been able to answer that question. Okay. So you can actually throw in your questions, and I will be willing to answer those questions and all. So sorry. Okay, that's accepted for visa application and all of that. Okay. Also, can I submit my sponsor's account statement as well as for visa application? Yes, you can submit your sponsor. It's even advisable to even submit your own statement of account and your sponsor's statement of account. Now, it all depends who is sponsoring you. If it's your brother, if it's your sister, if it's your uncle or your auntie, yes, you can submit it with a letter confirming that they are your uncle or they are your brothers and sisters. Now, for your brother and your sister, you can actually, if you have pictures to show that they are your brothers and sisters, so that will also fly. Pictures, old pictures, not just pictures, old pictures where you guys were growing up and where you have yourself and them in the picture. Now, I also give a scenario of a sponsorship we did the last time that one of our students actually got a visa. The mom actually runs a bar where people come to, a bar and a restaurant where people come to eat. So unfortunately, the business is registered, but she doesn't really pay. The business is not registered as such, but she has a business name. So what we did in this regard, or what we did in this case, was we had to take a picture. So we took pictures of the mommy's shop, we took pictures of the building itself, we took pictures of the mom inside the place attending to customers, and then we attach it that the mom has a business, but the business is not registered as such, based on the fact that the mom started the business many years ago and then didn't know what registration is, so she just run the business. It's just business that she does on a daily basis and all of that. And the moment we did all of those documentations to show proof, the students actually got the visa. So they want you to go extra miles, showing them or proving to them that this is what it is. And if you're going extra miles to show them those with additional documents, your chances of getting the visa is actually high. So very important. So if you're probably considering the island option, so you can actually start. Now, the visa application takes about 8 weeks. So we advise students who are interested in Ireland to kickstart their process now, because there's really no time again if you're looking at going in Ireland. If you're looking at studying going in for September 2022, it's best to start the visa application. It's best to start the admission process now. Now, the beautiful thing is Ireland application doesn't take so much time. So the moment you put in an application, in less than 2 weeks, you have gotten an offer. All you need to do is just pick up the Form A, do the online payment for the Form A, send your payments to them. As soon as they confirm the payment, then we can start the visa application. Okay, somebody's asking, what about an applicant for an IT program without a computing background? Now, yes, we've got students who don't have computing background, are looking at or were interested in studying IT courses, which are those who have actually traveled without an IT background. Yes, it's possible. All you need to do is just, if you have had 1 or 2 work experience in this regard, or you've done something in IT. For example, you've been doing, you studied accounting, or let's say you've done business administration and you want to go for IT. After you left school, you've been working in an organization, or you've been involved in IT, computing or IT related, Yes, truth is, you can actually do an IT course. All you need to do is just prove to the embassy that, since you left school, you've been working as an IT personnel, you've been working as an IT person for the past 2 years, for the past 3 years, and then get a letter. Or if you have also done some certification in IT, you can also submit those certifications. That way, you'll be able to convince the visa officer that yes, you're not just coming from the blue to say you want to do an IT course. You've actually had experience in IT or a related course. Thank you for the advice. Is it true? Okay, sorry, somebody's asking me, involved in making the travel dream come true. Okay, I didn't get that. Okay, invest. Okay, thank you for sending that. Thank you. That's one of our students who's currently in University of Hull. Okay. Okay. So like I said, so if you're looking at applying for September, the best time to start is now. And they've started taking in visa applications for September. So people have started submitting visa applications for September. Okay, so I greet you, yes, I greet you, boss. Well done. I greet you. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, you can actually throw in your questions, and I'll be willing to answer those questions. Okay.